Good morning.
Good morning. Steve, everybody's gone but us too.
Okay, Commissioner Clark, we're ready.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. As Chair of the Commission, I call this meeting of the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission to order at 10:02 a.m. This Zoom webinar is live streamed on YouTube on the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission YouTube channel. For anyone in the public watching who would prefer to watch via a different platform than they currently are using, please visit our social media at Redistricting Michigan, at Redistricting MI. Our live stream today includes closed captioning. Closed captioning, ASL interpretation, and Spanish, Arabic, and Bengali translation services will be provided for effective participation in this meeting. Email us at redistricting@michigan.gov for additional viewing options or details on accessing language translation services for this meeting. People with disabilities needing other specific accommodations should also contact us at redistricting@michigan.gov. This meeting is being recorded and will be available at www.michigan.gov/MICRC for viewing at a later date. This meeting is also being transcribed, and those closed caption transcripts will be made available and posted on the michigan.gov/MICRC website and written public comment submissions. There is also a public comment portal that may be accessed by visiting michigan.gov/MICRC. This portal can be utilized to post maps and comments, which can be viewed by both the commission and the public. Members of the media who have questions before, during, or after the meeting should direct those questions to Edward Woods III, Executive Director for the Commission, at woodse3@michigan.gov or 517-331-6309. For the public watching and the public record, I will turn to Department of State staff to take note of the commissioners present.
Good morning, commissioners. Please stay present when I call your name and let me know where you are attending remotely from. I will call on commissioners in alphabetical order, starting with Doug Clark.
Present. I am attending this meeting remotely from Rochester Hills, Michigan.
Juanita Curry.
Present, and I'm attending from Detroit, Michigan.
Anthony Eade.
Present. Good morning, everyone. And I am also virtually attending from Detroit, Michigan.
Brittany Kellum. Rhonda Lang. Steve Lett.
Attending from Grand Traverse County, Michigan. And Mr. Chairman, to let you know, if we run over and we're not done by 12:15, I will have to leave at that time.
Cynthia Orton.
Present, attending remotely from Battle Creek, Michigan.
MC Rothhorn.
Present, attending remotely from Lansing, Michigan.
Rebecca Satella,
President attending remotely from Wayne County, Michigan.
Janice Follett,
President attending from Highland Township, Michigan.
Aaron Wagner, Richard Weiss,
Present and attending remotely from Saginaw Township, Saginaw, Michigan.
Dustin Witches,
I'm present and I'm attending remotely from Douglas County, Illinois.
10 commissioners are present and there is a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Reinhardt. As a reminder to the public watching, you can view the agenda at www.michigan.gov/MICRC. I will now entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Rothorn and a second by Commissioner Willett. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion?
I believe the second was Commissioner Curry.
Oh, I'm sorry, I stand corrected. The motion was seconded by Commissioner Curry. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion? Hearing none, it is moved and seconded that the agenda be adopted. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail, the motion is adopted, and the nays have, and there is no nays at all on this motion. Let's move on to public comments. Without objection, we will begin the public comments pertaining to the agenda topics portion of our meeting. Hearing no objection, we will now proceed with public comment. Individuals who have signed up and indicated they would like to provide remote public comment to the commission will now be allowed. I will call your name and our staff will unmute you. If you're on a computer, you will be prompted by the Zoom app to unmute your microphone and speak. If you're on a phone, a voice will say that the host wants you to speak and prompt you to press *6 to unmute. I will call on you by your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. Also, please note that if you experience technical or audio issues, or we do not hear from you for 3 to 5 seconds, we will move on to the next person in line and then return to you after they are done. If your audio still does not work, you can email us at redistricting/michigan.gov. And we will help you troubleshoot so you can participate during the next public comment period at a later date. You will have 2 minutes to address the commission. Please conclude your remarks when you hear the timer. Okay, currently, we have one individual signed up for public comments today, and that is James Gallant. Please allow us a minute for our staff to unmute you, Mr. Gallant.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All righty, James Gallant, Marquette County Suicide Prevention Coalition. These are my opinions. I submitted a written email a few minutes ago, so it explains this. But please formally contact the Auditor General and formally request that he finish his procedural audit that you requested to identify the rules of procedure and whether or not you follow those rules of procedure, including an expense report number 6133.2 litigation counsel, where you have spent money on clearly partisan attorneys in direct contradiction to the Constitution. You can see the transcripts. Commissioner Lett testified to that. Also, I'm working with the Michigan Judicial Council and the Supreme Court to recommend that the court issue an order establishing Robert's Rules of Order as the fundamental principle of parliamentary procedure in Michigan and create formal trainings for the our constitutional democracy in the field. And also, I submitted some anomalies to the justices, including the applications of Commissioner Lett, Zatella, and Kellum, who appeared to be incomplete because the part about the partisan and affiliation, it says choose not to answer, which means it is effectively incomplete and it should be tossed out and it should be, you folks should be replaced. Also, I submitted, let me see. Oh yeah. In my opinion, Commissioner Witches may be considered a hostile foreign actor who has violated his oath of office by personally instilling components of the deliberative democracy, which is approved in the Netherlands, and it's created in the 1960s, and he has infiltrated our constitutional democracy on the record. And now you are doing this deliberative democracy. You start with deliberation and the motion doesn't come until after you negotiate the motion. And in America, consensus is considered not less than a 60% vote, according to the National Quality Forum, which is the national consensus building organization for the federal government, including the Department of State. So please schedule
Your allotted time has ended, Mr. Gallant. We thank you for your comments. That concludes our public comment. Please feel free to email public comments to the commission at redistricting@michigan.gov. We appreciate everyone who offers public comment in whatever way you choose and invite you to keep sharing your thoughts, especially if you'd like to share ways that the commission may improve. Unfinished business. Next on our agenda is unfinished business agenda. Item 5A, C-SPAN award winners from Skyline High School. Without objection, I will ask MICRC Executive Director Edward Woods III to present this item. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Clark. Good morning, commissioners. How are you? It is exciting to be here today. We have some award winners right here in Michigan, who did a video on Michigan's redistricting process for the annual student documentary competition for C-SPAN Student Camp. And I'm so excited. You see these lovely ladies in the background, Ava and Amelia, I should say, Ava and Amelia, and I'm happy to have them both here. And we're going to show their video. And after we show their video, they're going to tell you a little bit about the project and how C-SPAN came to Ann Arbor Skyline High School to award them with their recognition. So they're going to tell you what they received. But we are so excited to have these two gifted and talented students with us today. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen so you can see their award-winning broadcast.
So I voted today. I think there's a lot of issues that I care about in this election.
I decided to vote because I feel like I was lucky to be born into a country that has democratic principles.
The country is at a turning point with its division, and I had to have my voice being heard.
I think gerrymandering is one of the, maybe the biggest threat to our democracy.
I think everybody's voice should be heard.
In the 1800s, Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry redrew voter districts in order to make sure he would win the next election.
He said, well, someone next to him said that's a salamander. He said, no, that's a gerrymander.
Since Elbridge Gerry's first gerrymandered district back in the early 1800s, many politicians have followed suit and strategically created districts that benefited them in elections. Since 2018, Michigan's new redistricting process has made sure that elections are fair and balanced. Through the years, minorities have been systemically impacted by gerrymandering, but Michigan is leading the way in helping to change that.
Now, with the new census figures out, which take into account the population growth in the United States and geographical and demographical changes as well, the every 10-year congressional redistricting will start. The new districts will be in place for the 2022 mid-year elections.
So every 10 years, the legislatures in the states have to reapportion the number of people in each election district. And gerrymandering is when the legislature itself draws those lines, and they're trying to make the districts so that they come out with as many districts as possible where they have an election advantage.
Gerrymandering is a way of manipulating the boundaries, whether they're state Senate, state House, or congressional boundaries, to benefit a particular person or party.
So the whole idea behind gerrymandering is to make each vote count differently. And so there's a disconnect between what voters want and what they're voting for and who they're actually electing. So it's all of the voters in the other party, right, that aren't getting representation, no matter how much they vote, no matter how much they turn out or how they're making their voices heard, they don't get representation at all.
For sure, we have a lopsided legislative body, and that's because of gerrymandering.
In 2018, 61% voters said, you know what? We want ordinary citizens, not politicians, to draw fair maps with public engagement. And as a result of that, the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission was formed. In Michigan, we have 7 ranked redistricting criteria that we are required to follow. And that 7 ranked redistricting criteria includes the following: equal population in the Voting Rights Act. It has to be geographically contiguous, reflects the state's diversity and communities of interest. That's number 3. Number 4, no disproportionate advantage to any political party. Number 5, no favor or disfavor to any incumbent elected official or a candidate. Number 6, reflect consideration of county, city, and township boundaries. And number 7, be reasonably compact. You got to really campaign and have a platform that attracts the diversity of people that are in your respective district. And that's why you're seeing more competitive races, because the districts aren't being gerrymandered anymore. And that's something that you want to make sure that you have in a thriving democracy, is to ensure voices are heard, not partisanship, but voices, citizens' voices are heard, regardless of the party that they may belong to or not belong to at all.
So I think Michigan is a huge success story. A lot of people are looking at it to see, what kinds of things can be adopted in other states. And so Michigan is a model for other states right now because of what voters have done to end gerrymandering.
And as you may have noticed, here in Michigan, it's being talked about as a model possibly for the nation to follow.
So that's super exciting.
We can't hear you, Edward. Still can't hear you.
How about now?
Yes.
Great. So commissioners, without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Amelia and Ava. Hello, ladies, and it's great to see you. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having us.
We're very excited to be here. Yeah, so that was our video that you just saw. So basically, we kind of tackled the issue of gerrymandering for our documentary. So we basically, as you saw, we interviewed people who were at the polls voting, and we wanted to really get an idea of the steps that Michigan is taking to kind of combat gerrymandering and make more fair and equal voter districts. Yeah. So, yeah, and then we were fortunate enough to have a representative from C-SPAN last week actually come to our school and present us with the award. And Mr. Woods also attended, which was really, really awesome. So we were super, super excited about that. And we're very excited to be here talking to you all. So, and if you have any questions for us, please feel free to ask them. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Clark. Amelia and Ava, I think this is outstanding work.
Thank you so much.
I think we couldn't be happier as a commission. And hopefully the two of you will be on the next commission, which is in
Yeah.
2030.
That'd be really
We're
cool.
looking forward to that.
We would love to.
Well, we hope you are. So Commissioner Rothhorn, I believe you had a comment.
I was just curious, did were there other topics that like your classmates chose, or did you have to arm wrestle people to get this topic?
So most people chose more talked about topics, which are still very important, like maybe gun rights or
climate change,
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we decided to do something that's a little bit less talked about and less kind of in the minds of most people. And that's why we picked gerrymandering. And nobody else did our topic. So yeah.
How do you think it was received? Like, do your classmates, does it feel like it's more talked about now because of this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I definitely think that our video had an impact on our school community. I think people are kind of, it's in there, it's been moved from the back of the mind to the front of the mind. And so people are talking about it more. And when we received our award last week, one of the things that the representative from C-SPAN mentioned that she liked about our video is that it wasn't one of those like hot topic issues, but it's still something that's very, very important, and it impacts basically every other issue because it impacts the way we vote.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Amelia said about the C-SPAN. Rachel Katz is the leader of the program who flew in as a part of that. And she really lauded them and gave them commendations for the uniqueness of their topic. And so I just want to echo what Amelia said. And in addition to their parents who are also present, I want to give a shout out to their teachers, the co-leads for the Communications, Media, and Public Policy Magnet Program at Ann Arbor Skyline High School, and Ross Dunbar and Kate McCraw. They were wonderful mentors. They cheered them on. And they said they were in the lab all hours. They couldn't kick them out the lab because they wanted to make sure that they got it right. So it really speaks to the diligence and the future and why it's so bright as a result of Ava and Amelia's work. And I just want you to, I know who's who. Ava, can you raise your hand because it's opposite of the name? There you go.
Oh yeah. Hi.
Amelia, you can raise your hand as opposite so that you guys know who you're talking to, but just want to commend once again these outstanding young ladies, their parents, and their teachers for a job well done. Thank you, Commissioner.
So much.
Good job.
Thank you.
And we want to say again, we really appreciate what you've done and think it's outstanding work. You're welcome to stay with us for the rest of the meeting if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Edward?
Nope, just want to say thanks again, and please pass our regards to your parents and your teachers.
We will. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I guess
Go ahead, Commissioner Rothhorn.
Because we're going to be talking about archives later, I'm just curious, is this would this be archived when we do get to this topic? Is this sort of proprietary by Ava and Amelia, or is this now open? I'm just curious, will it be archived or can it be archived? Do we know?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, archiving is our next topic on the agenda.
What a segue. All right, cool. Thank you.
Great. Next on the agenda is on unfinished business is archiving the commissioner's work. Without objection, MICRC Executive Director Edward Woods III and I will present this item. We're hearing no objection. I'll proceed. Well, we brought up the topic last meeting on archiving. And Edward and I initiated a meeting with Matt Grossman and Tom Abanco, Matt from MSU and Tom from University of Michigan. And it was an item that they had brought to our attention that facilities were available to archive our work. So we thought that we could get a lot of detailed information from them. And they basically referred us to two individuals, one at the University of Michigan, the Bentley Archiving Center, and another individual at Michigan State University, which is called the Matrix organization. And we also had a discussion with Wayne State University, which is the Walter Reuther archival organization at that university. And we've got further details. So I believe we've got some slides based on our conversations with Bentley and the Reuther and the Matrix organizations. So if you could move forward with that, Edward, I'd appreciate it.
All right. Commissioner Clark, let's give just a little bit of a background and then we'll get right to that. Hold on, let me put it on the screen. I know we had some questions as to what are archives, and it's a department or organization that collects, preserves, and shares records of enduring value. The reason why you want to archive or the purpose for archiving is to preserve valuable documentary evidence, help the past come alive and uncover hidden stories. The State of Michigan Archives is the place where we keep our records. It's hosted at the Michigan Historical Society, which is at the Michigan Library. Currently, as we've already stated in the past, is archived the commission report, the lessons learned report, and the Congressional, State Senate, and State House maps. You can actually go to the Michigan Library today and ask and look at those reports because they're currently archived in the state of Michigan. Commissioner Clark, here are the other potential archive sites that you requested. Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we had conversations with those three universities that I mentioned. And basically it got, let me go through them one by one. Michigan State University, what we found in discussing with them is that we needed a grant to cover the cost. Now, we don't get the grant, they get the grant, and that will fully fund the archival project. They need to get approval at the university, and it'll take 1 to 3 years for the project to be completed. We then went and talked to Wayne State University. No funds and no grant is required. They will fully fund it. And so again, there's no cost to us. They indicated that it may take up to 5 years to complete the project. And they currently have a resource limitation. And they're gonna have to bring on more human resources to complete the project. Let's go to the next slide. And the University of Michigan, which is the Bentley Archive, they can start immediately. Again, they would fully fund it. There's no money coming out of our pockets or our budget. They think that including oral interviews with each of the commissioners will be extremely beneficial to the archival process. Their point of view is they think they'll get more information than they can get, additional information than they can get from all the tapes that we've had and so forth, and get more of a human aspect and something that will greatly benefit any researchers that would research the data. And again, no funds are required from the University of Michigan to accomplish this. Let's go to the next slide. So and let me mention one other thing about the University of Michigan. Voters Not Politicians are archiving their work at the University of Michigan. And Tom Ivanko has indicated that he would like to move his work and his research that he's done on the redistricting process into the University of Michigan Bentley archives as well, which is just a tremendous benefit. There's got, you want to move forward with the lessons learned, Edward?
Sure. Commissioner Clark and I really got a chance to understand the indexing process to make it available for public use. With regards to the archives, the way we would take a look at it, if you look at our meeting materials and notifications, our records are usually associated with in chronological order by the meetings. And so they thought that would be a good place to start with regards to that. It flowed, it makes sense, but it's just a matter of, predominantly using what is currently on our website as the basis for the archives, and then looking for any other potential records. There are costs associated with archiving, as we talked about a little bit earlier. So that was something that we wanted to address. We wanted to know if there was any cost by the commission or whether costs would be borne by the institution, but there are costs associated with it. We understood in reaching out to California that the website is not reliable. When it crashes, you may not recover all the information. And we understood that in 2010, if their website did crash, they weren't able to recover all the information and they did not have it archived. So some of the information was lost. As a result, it's best to archive in 2 places versus 1 with regards to that. University of Michigan in particular, in addition to the oral interviews that they would do for each individual commissioner, they also would be interested in any handwritten notes or other materials that is not on the website that could be shared in the archives. And as Commissioner Clark already stated, the University of Michigan, they're also archiving records for Voters Not Politicians and Center for the Local, State, and Urban Policy. So you would have that. So those are just some of the lessons learned as we engaged and met with these different entities to share this report with you as a commission. And as a result, the recommendation is to move that the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission places its archive, which is our public records, obviously with the State of Michigan archives, and they're ready to process immediately. I spoke to the lady yesterday with regards to that and followed back up with her because we don't know how long we'll be in operation. So as a result, they're ready to process immediately, as well as the University of Michigan, who is also willing to start immediately as well. Thank you, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? I see none. I can't see you, Dustin. Do you have a question? Apparently not. Okay. Commissioner Lett.
Is the idea only to do archiving with the U of M and not Wayne State and Michigan State, or is the idea to do all 3 or let all 3 archive?
The idea is to get started with the University of Michigan. We can't do anything with Michigan State at this point unless they get a grant. And we can't do anything with Wayne State because they've got an approval process that they've got to go through to make that happen. And it's a quarterly process. And I believe they're meeting or did meet this week. So I don't know if it was on the agenda or not. So there would be a time delay with either one of those. We can address those when they get back to us and see if we want to pursue it. Right now, I would make sure that we at least have it in one place. And the University of Michigan, I think, is the most comprehensive of the 3, given that Voters Not Politicians and Tom and Baco's organization's data is going to be housed there as well.
Then I would move the motion as set forth on the screen just before. I would make that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Lett, and I've got a second from Commissioner Rothorn. So the motion is made by Commissioner Lett, seconded by Commissioner Rothorn. Is there any other discussion or debate on the item? On the motion?
I just want to say thank you for doing the research and presenting it. That was helpful.
Mr. Woods, could you put the motion back on the screen for just one moment?
I believe, Commissioner Rothorn, that this will be extremely beneficial data for researchers. I think it's a good way to preserve our work as well.
Yeah, and if they're, I'm just thinking about the like Ava and forgot her name. Amelia, thank you. Ava and Amelia, and like future students that want to get to this and like potentially do this work like that, those archives will be important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it'll also be important, I believe, for the next commission. Yeah.
Doug.
Yes, Commissioner Curry.
Yes, they were also saying that if we had any personal notes we would like to turn in, who do we give them to our director?
Well, once we get things set with the University of Michigan, we'll get that coordinated among the commissioners and get it turned into a central point and get it to them.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Okay, hearing none. We have a motion on the floor. Can we bring the motion up one more time? If that's possible. So the motion is move that the Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission places its archives with the State of Michigan Archives and the University of Michigan. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. Okay, the ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. Okay, next on our agenda, which is unfinished business, we've got an amendment to the rules of procedures of the State of Michigan Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, Section 6.2. Without objection, I will ask Commissioner Stephen Lett, our legal liaison, and MICRC Executive Director Edward Woods III to present this item. Hearing no objection, please proceed.
Thank you, Doug. With the pandemic officially over, unless you happen to have COVID, we are no longer required or to have meetings by Zoom. We can go back to meeting in person, or if we amend the rules, we can continue to meet remotely. So the motion is, as stated, it's under section 6.2 meetings, and currently it says official actions shall be taken only at a meeting which is conducted in accordance with these rules. And then it says the commission shall conduct meetings as follows, which then sets forth a number of different scenarios for meetings. So the proposed amendment is to add in person or remotely by majority vote of the commission in setting such meetings. This would then allow us to continue either remotely, which is probably makes the most sense since we are all scattered throughout the state and occasionally throughout the nation. And since we're not drawing maps, all of the work that we need to do right now can be handled remotely without any problem. So that's the purpose of the motion. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor made by Commissioner Lett. Do we have a second to that motion?
I second it.
I have a second by Commissioner Curry. Is there any discussion or debate on the motion?
Yes, Commissioner Clark, I'd like to recognize Commissioner Orton for bringing this to our attention. The inquiry is what set the basis for that. So thank you, Commissioner Orton.
Thank you, Executive Director Woods. Thank you, Commissioner Orton.
Yeah, I didn't mean to slight you, Cynthia. Your idea.
I don't feel slighted at all. It was just a question.
Probably no one was going to show up at a in-person meeting anyway, so.
Okay, are there any other comments? All right, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the motion is adopted.
I have one more thing that kind of goes along with this. Under our rules of procedure, miscellaneous section 14.2, it states by adopting subsequent amendments, which this is, to these rules pursuant to this section, the commission ratifies all prior acts taken by the commission. Pursuant to that section on amendments, I would move that we in fact ratify all of our prior actions taken previous to this amendment. The purpose for doing that, quite frankly, is Mr. James Gallant suggesting that we're not doing everything right, and thereby, therefore, under Robert's Rules of Order, we can ratify prior actions. So the motion is to ratify prior actions taken prior to this amendment.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion? I have a second by Commissioner Satella. Are there any comments or discussion on the motion? All, okay, let's take a vote on that motion. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the motion is adopted. Thank you very much, Commissioner Lab.
That's all I have on those.
Okay. Let's move on to new business. Next on our agenda is a new business item number 6A, fiscal year 23 budget update. Without objection, I will ask MICRC Executive Director to present. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Okay, let me see if I can share my screen. There is a challenge here with regard to that. So hold on. All right, let me know if you can you see the screen?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay,
you see it.
Thank you for your patience. All right, here we are. Where you see the yellow lines, those are bills that have not come in yet. I repeat, those are bills that have not come in yet. The technology internal purchases through the state is an internal line item transfer that comes from the state per month. So we're waiting to receive that. That usually comes at the end of the month, but it's posted later. And at this time, we have not received that with our April financials that comes from the Legislative Services Bureau. And we also have not received an invoice for line drawing, which would be for our mapping services, as well as our expert witness fees and our ongoing lawsuit with the AG case. We spent for the month of April without those $260,362.16. As many of you already know, that 7 months of the fiscal year has transpired. And as a result, we've only spent 48% of the budget has been expended, but yet 58% of the fiscal year has transpired. Once again, we do have two outstanding invoices. And as you know, we do have some office expenses that we're trying to get office and travel expenses that we're trying to get reimbursed by the end of the month as a result of not having our money at the beginning of the fiscal year. So this is a report. You see our costs are basically minimal. The bulk of our costs, as always, focuses on defending the lawsuit that we have in the AG case. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
No questions for Executive Director Woods on this? Okay, Executive Director Woods. could
Commissioner
you-
Orton, Commissioner Clark has her
Oh,
hand
I'm
up.
sorry, I didn't see. it.
I couldn't
Commissioner
find my little hand to raise it. So it's not really about this, but it's about the upcoming fiscal year budget. What are we doing to make sure we are included in the budget?
That will be a part of the Executive Director report, but I can
Okay.
assure you things are in motion and working with Commissioner Lett and Commissioner Clark.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll get to that in a few minutes. Any other comments on this subject? Okay, thank you, Executive Director Woods. Let's move on to the agenda to the approval of the minutes, which is agenda item 7A. These are the minutes from the April 20th meeting. These draft minutes have been provided to the commission before this meeting and are posted on the website. Are there any edits to these minutes? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Orton and a second by Commissioner Rothorn. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail. So let's move on to the next agenda item. Okay. The next agenda item is item number 7.b. Yes, 7.b from the April 20th meeting. Without objection, I will ask MICRC Executive Director Woods to present. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. We just want to make sure that the motion was clear. I think the intent was clear, but we just want to make sure we have a clarifying motion. So the minutes is an accurate, once again, the minutes is an accurate transpire of what took place at the meeting, but we do want to ensure clarity. The motion that was approved was authorize the MICRC Executive Director to work with the Michigan Department of State to ensure approved travel expenses are reimbursed and hourly rate is not billed in the litigation contract. Here's the revised motion for consideration by the commission, which is to authorize the MICRC Executive Director to work with the Michigan Department of State to ensure approved travel expenses are reimbursed and the hourly rate is not billed for travel unless commission work is being done in the litigation contract. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time, but it's just to ensure clarity. And so this is the motion that we're requesting that the commission approve for its consideration.
Do I have a motion on the floor from one of the commissioners?
So moved.
It's motions by Commissioner Lett and seconded by Commissioner Curry. Okay, any discussion on the clarifying motion? Okay, I'll make one comment. When I had to sign the paperwork for the original motion, I brought it to Edward's attention that I didn't think it was detailed enough to discuss for discussion purposes on what the comments Commissioner Lett had made during the meeting. So we revised it and thought we'd bring forward a clarifying motion on that. So, okay. All right, so we've got a motion on the floor. Let's take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the minutes are approved. Okay. So let's move on to our executive director report. There is an executive director report today. Without objection, I will ask MICRC Executive Director Woods to provide his report. Please proceed, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. If you can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thank you. And let me go ahead and advance the slide. April highlights for the website. Once again, our page views are going down. Approximately 9,700 page views. Final district maps represent 59% and district maps by county of 11.5%. A lot of the work that's being done is focused on our catalog of meetings. This is going to be actually instrumental for archiving and for archiving purposes. And so I try to update that once a quarter and share it with you so that you see everything that is there. We have a few outstanding items missing, and we hope to be caught up with everything in June and working with the Michigan Department of State. But this is a catalog of meetings. It's an Excel spreadsheet document that talks about everything from the beginning that we met till the end, and provides also a summary. We use this for our quarterly financial reports to the legislature. And it's also a way for people who want to know what took place at each meeting to identify so they can go back and look at what happened back in July of 2021 or 2022 or what have you. And it automatically links to the actual meeting or subcommittee that the commission may have had in place at the time, so they can get it right there. So all of that is in one spot. Abacus Service Corporation, as you know, the commission voted. I've been working with them in terms of setup. This week, they started the setup for our expense reports and the time. So there's a few things outstanding, but for the most part, everything seems to be going smoothly and people have been paid. And so once again, we're still working with Abacus. If you have any questions or concerns, please notify me with regards to those so I can make sure that they're solved. As it relates, going back to Commissioner Orton's inquiry about the fiscal year 24 budget, the best metaphor I could think of is we're kind of like caught in a pickle. We're like this unicorn out there. You know, we're a legislative body that has a constitution amendment that was passed where the legislature is required to fund us. But then if you remember last time, the legislature said the administration didn't include it in the budget. The administration said the legislator didn't approve the budget. And there's really no process for how we go through the budgeting process. You know, when you're on the executive side, you know, you work with the governor's office, you submit your budget, you testify before the legislature, and that's how it's done on the executive side. But we're part of the legislative branch. And so we're kind of caught between two. And the thing that's so ironic is, you know, when we sue, the taxpayers pay for us to defend the lawsuit and our attorneys, and the taxpayers pay for the state for them to show up in court. And so we wanted to be proactive, and I want to thank and give a shout out to Mike Brady, as well as to Nate and David Fink, and also the offices of State Senator Sarah Anthony and Angela Whitwer, in terms of trying to identify, you know, how do we avoid this quagmire? So what happened in fiscal year 23 doesn't happen in fiscal year 24. So we sent an email. I'm waiting for a response to the state budget director with regards to, you know, what is the process? What do we need to do? Because the budget is in the approval process. It's, you know, it's going through the process to be approved. And we want to say again, because we also spoke up last year, hey, don't forget us. But also at the same time, we asked our attorneys to reach out to the AG's office so that they could reach out to the House attorneys as well as the Senate attorneys and, hey, remind them that, hey, we still have pending litigation. Here's the potential timeline. There's a great chance that we will not be settled with this lawsuit this fiscal year. Once again, we will not be settled with this lawsuit for this fiscal year. And so initially they kind of pushed back and said, no, we think you will. But then when Nate Fink shared the timeline, they agreed that we probably wouldn't. And they said they would reach out to their attorneys and get back with Nate Fink. Usually the budget is approved in June, sometime in June before the 4th of July recess. And that's what we want to be included in that budget. We have shown that the commission is good stewards of taxpayers' money by receiving a clean audit. We have shown that we're good stewards of taxpayers' money and that we're 10% behind projection currently in this fiscal year. And every time we had a surplus, we have been good stewards and returned the money back to the legislature. I repeat, we returned the money back to the legislature. I know that there was some confusion among some folks in the legislature with regards to our ability to keep the additional funding. When we got the additional funding for legal bills, they thought we could keep that additional money, but no, the Constitution is very clear. We had to return it back. We know that there's some confusion with the legislature that they thought we authored the Slay the Dragon video, but yet the commission was not even formed. And so we really want to kind of set the record straight, be clear and be transparent, but also be responsible stewards of taxpayer money and not having them to pay for the plaintiffs as well as the defendants. So we have, once again, a call out to the attorneys for the State House and State Senate to get us included in the budget. But at the same time, we want to avoid what happened last time. And so as a part of the commission's discussion, as you deliberate and debate, one thing that might be up for consideration would be authorizing the executive director to work with our legal counsel, just in case we need to pursue some legal action so we don't have to go through what we did last time and wait. Because usually after the budget is completed in June, you can see the reluctance of both sides, both houses, I should say the House and the Senate, to actually taking up this legislation to approve our budget. And as a result, we had no money until February that we were able to, or the end of January. I think it was voted the end of January, but we didn't get the funds to actually February. So we were basically operating October, November, December, January, 4.5 months without a budget. And so that's something to consider as part of your debate and deliberations as to what we can do to move forward. But I would like to suggest that we do provide that authority with regards to authorizing that. And by doing that, I always work with the commission chair and the legal liaison in terms of trying to rectify this situation. If there's any questions, I can take them at this time.
Seeing no questions or comments from individuals, do I have somebody that would like to make a motion that Mr. Woods be given the authority to work with legal counsel in case it's needed?
So moved.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Curry. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay, I have a second by Commissioner Orton. Okay. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail and the minutes are approved.
Well, great. And then thank you. Hopefully we can get out of this pickle, or as they say, between a rock and a hard place because of the unicorn nature of our commission. Last but not least, just want to recognize Commissioner Lett and Commissioner Zatella. They did an interview for our New York Times with regards to redistricting in the Supreme Court case. So once again, this commission continues to be in the news as a result of what's taking place around the country. And once again, kudos to each commissioner for your outstanding work, because you're still being talked about as a model for the nation. So once again, thanks again to Commissioner Lett and Commissioner Zatella for being a part of that. They wanted to interview independents or people not affiliated with either party as a result of that interview. Thank you
Commissioner Lett,
again.
do you have something to say?
Yeah, I'm officially pissed off. None of my comments made it into the article. All of Rebecca's comments made it into the article.
Sorry, Steve.
I'm going to have to learn how to be a little more acerbic.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Appreciate the support, Commissioner Clark, of the commission and the members. And thank you. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Woods. There is a legal liaison report. Without objection, I will ask our legal liaison commissioner, Stephen Lett, provide his report. Please proceed, Commissioner Lett.
I'm going to have to defer to Rebecca because she gets all the kudos. I think everybody's received the motion from Baker for summary disposition along with the brief. If you haven't, I know I got another copy today. Edward, I think you sent it to everybody, I'm assuming.
Yes, but there was a delay in the email, so I didn't get it right away.
Yeah.
And so, but they should have gotten it last night. Thank you.
Of course, procedurally, for those who aren't used to litigation, the motion simply says we deserve to win, and see the brief that's attached, and then the attached brief. Basically, we had a discussion with Baker along with Edward and Fink about what they were going to put in, etc. Their estimate is there's a good chance on parts of the motion that we would be successful and might prevail, but they don't think that we would prevail 100% and have the case dismissed. Understand that what you have in federal court and motions is there has to be no disagreement on a material section of the motion. In other words, there can be no facts which would support the other side. So there could be no dispute regarding a material fact in the case. And that's relatively a hard thing to prove without having some type of documentation and evidence testimony. So we have had depositions, which certainly can be used, but that's procedurally where it sets. The AG, the plaintiffs, have filed a similar motion that says we deserve to win because there's no dispute about a material fact, and no factual situation can arise which would negate that, and therefore we should win. And then they've supplied a 35-page brief, approximately, just like we did. So assuming that, I will say that in federal court, they are much, in my experience, much more likely to grant a summary judgment motion than in state court. However, you still have in these types of cases, in a voting rights case, redistricting case, they're so fact dependent that it's very hard to get a summary judgment motion granted. So there's no expectation that the whole thing will be dismissed. There is some expectation that portions of it would be dismissed. I will say that we're having another meeting tomorrow with Baker and with Fink, Edward, and we'll discuss. I don't know exactly what we're going to discuss. From what I get from Baker's email to us, is they wanted to discuss a presentation of the motion, I guess. If they have an oral argument, if it's going to be Zoom or in person, it'll be held in Kalamazoo at the federal court. That's my understanding. And that means that Cynthia would be handy to go down and see what happens. I might go just because, and anybody else is certainly welcome to show up and sit in the peanut gallery. And when we make a point, you go yay. And when the other side makes a point, you go boo. And if you do that, you'll get thrown out of court. But having said all that, if you have any questions about how the process works, if you read through the briefs and you have particular questions, I'm certainly happy if you want to get a hold of me. I can try to answer them for you. I don't know that I would necessarily be able to. I don't know, Rebecca, you want to open yourself up for commentary?
Commissioner Sotelo, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I wouldn't say commentary, but just sort of explaining it like I would to a fifth grader, like what all these different things are. So we're at the point now where we've gone through what we call discovery, which is the other parties each investigate each other's claims. And then we're kind of at the motion stage, which is where you go before the court and you say, I don't think this should go to trial because of X, Y, Z. And I think you judge should just rule in my favor. That's kind of the point we're at right now. If, depending on, like, as Steve said, part of the motion could be granted, part of it could be denied. If there is some sort of partial grant, doesn't mean the case is over. It means we potentially then will have a trial date set and move forward to trial. Or the court could say there's no merit to any of these claims and throw the whole thing out, in which case we would advance probably to appeals. But this is just kind of the litigation process for those who are not lawyers is long and complicated, and there are many steps along the way, and we're kind of like at step 2. So just so everybody kind of understands where we're at, and this is the point where the court decides whether we're moving to trial or we're not moving to trial, and where we go from there. So that would just be my additional clarification. And certainly if other people have questions, feel free to ask me as well. I'm more than happy to clarify things if anyone has concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Sotelo. Do you have anything else to discuss, Commissioner Webb?
I don't believe so. However, I made a note to myself since I'm on to we just passed the amendment to meet remotely, and we need to take a vote on how we're going to meet from here on out. So I guess at this point, with your permission, Mr. Chair, I would move that we continue to meet remotely unless we bring it up to meet in person for a particular reason. So that's my motion. Continue to meet remotely.
Thank you, Commissioner Lett. I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a second from Commissioner Weiss. Okay, great. So all in favor of the motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail. And the motion is approved. Thank you.
All I have, unless somebody has any questions for me.
I see no questions. Thank you, Commissioner Lett. Without objection, I will ask Mike Brady or Sarah Reinhardt from the Michigan Department of State if they have an update. Hearing no objection, please proceed, Mr. Brady or Ms. Reinhardt.
I have no updates. Mike, do you have anything?
I do not.
Can't
Thank
hear
you.
Mike.
He said he does not.
Okay, he does not. Okay, thank you. We will move on then. Correspondence. If any was available, was received in advance of our meeting today, along with any written public comments to the commissioners. Future agenda items. Are there any agenda items the commissioners would like to have added to future agendas? Seeing none. Are there any announcements from the commissioners or from the executive director? Seeing none. as the items on the agenda are completed and the commission has no further business, a motion to adjourn is in order. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Buckner to adjourn, a second from Commissioner Lett. All in favor, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All opposed, raise your hand and say nay. The ayes prevail. The meeting is adjourned at 11:10 a.m. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.